Hey guys, my name is Catherine. Thank you for joining me again for another episode of Missing the Missing. In this episode, number 26, we're going to be talking about Laura El Hagrasi. Laura Priedi was born in 1982 in Riga, Latvia, to her mother Rita and her father Uldis. Riga is the largest and capital city of Latvia, housing approximately a third of Latvia's population, and it hosts the largest and busiest airport in the Baltic states. At the time when Laura was born, the population of Riga was approximately 850,000. Rita and Uldis already had a son at the time, Laura's older brother Ritvars, with Laura completing the family unit. Laura went to school in Riga and studied history at the University of Latvia before travelling to Egypt, where she met an Egyptian man named Ahmed El Hagrasi. The two would go on to marry, with their first daughter, Epsam, being born in December 2005 in Peterborough, Cambridgeshire, UK, while Laura was visiting friends. Their younger daughter, Selma, followed 5 years later, being born in Latvia in 2010. The relationship between Laura and Ahmed soured, and Laura moved with the children to the southeast of England, where she would be known locally as Laura. The Priedi family were close, with Laura's father also moving to the area to support her and her children. Laura and her children resided in Cliftonville in Thanet, an area of Kent, where their neighbour Violetta Okanuska says they always greeted each other when they passed each other. Thanet, referred to as the Isle of Thanet, historically being separated from the mainland UK, is a tourist destination whose name is the source of much speculation. Amongst other theories, Archbishop Isidore of Seville in the 7th century morbidly connected Thanet with the Greek word for death, thanatos. Violetta described Laura as a smiling person, and Laura's niece described her as a woman with the biggest heart. Laura worked packing fruit and vegetables while her children attended Draper's Mill School in Margate. Laura's father would often take the girls to school and even look after them over the weekends so Laura could socialise and attend parties. Uldis doted on his granddaughters, who were described to have been very well cared for and had everything they wanted. At one of these parties, Laura met a man by the name of Levani from Georgia, though he had allegedly entered the UK under a false visa under the name of Alexei. Both Levani and Laura were married at the time, but separated from their respective partners, with Laura's husband in Egypt and Levani's wife in Georgia. Laura and Levani began a relationship, perhaps sparking a very complicated love triangle. At the time of her disappearance, Laura was described as a 33-year-old Caucasian female with a medium build. She was 5 feet 4 inches, or approximately 162 centimeters tall. She had straight, shoulder-length brown hair and green eyes. It is unknown what she was last seen wearing. Laura is a Latvian national who may speak with an Eastern European accent. Laura may use her birth and maiden name, Laura Priedi, her nickname Luari, her Egyptian surname Ahmed El Hagrasi, or any combination thereof. The information regarding the day Laura disappeared is confusing, vague, and unclear. That which has been publicly released suggests the following. On Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015, Laura and her family, including her children and husband, were due to fly to Egypt from London Heathrow Airport. They left their home in Thanet at approximately 3:20 in the morning in a vehicle, arriving at Heathrow approximately 6 hours later, just before 10 a.m. Laura did not board her flight and was reported missing from her home the following evening at 7 p.m. on Thursday the 23rd of April 2015. Given the lack of information which has been publicly released, it's difficult to ascertain the level of investigation which has taken place. Investigation did reveal, however, that the vehicle used to transport the family from Thanet to Heathrow was a silver-coloured Peugeot 208 hire or rental car with the registration AK13 VHT or Alpha Kilo 13 Victor Hotel Tango. It is believed that the vehicle has since been returned to the rental company, though when, under what circumstances, and in what condition are unknown. It is usually the case that when a rental vehicle is returned, it is thoroughly inspected and the hire company keeps meticulous records of the person who not only collects the vehicle, but the one who returns it and more. Furthermore, it is unclear when the vehicle was rented or picked up and from where. Was the vehicle picked up hours or days before the journey to the airport? And by whom? I assume, since the vehicle details are known, that this avenue was pursued by police, though what, if anything, it confirmed is unknown. Analysing the police appeals adds further confusion to what is already a perplexing case. Whilst various reports claim that Laura was seen at Heathrow Airport, others merely say that the family were known to have attended the Heathrow area. Police appeals, in particular, are asking for anybody who saw Laura travelling to the airport that morning, suggesting that they have no evidence that she actually arrived. In 2015, London Heathrow Airport was the 6th busiest airport in the world by passenger traffic, and the busiest airport in Europe, being used by more than 80 airlines flying to 185 destinations in 84 countries. In 2017, Heathrow hosted 78 million passengers, and in 2019 was noted as being the best connected airport globally. Every day, approximately 220,000 people travel through the area, being monitored by over 6,500 CCTV cameras. That being said, it is almost inconceivable that Laura disappeared from the airport itself. There are many who believe that to leave so early in the morning to catch a flight is unreasonable or suspicious. However, it is not uncommon for people in London and even other large cities, at least in the UK, to do so. Due to how busy the airport is and how many airlines service it, it is typical for some flights to depart in the early morning hours. Factoring in security and baggage checks, it is entirely plausible that a family, travelling with young children who may need to stop en route, would leave their home at 3:20 in the morning. What is unusual, however, is that a multitude of sources and personal anecdotal information suggests that the journey between Cliftonville and Kent, approximately 100 miles or 160 kilometres, should have taken no longer than 2 hours. 2 hours 30 minutes had there been congestion or road closures, and likely a lot less considering the time of morning they were supposed to have set off. Bear in mind also that most of that journey is on the motorway where the speed limit is 70 miles an hour, or approximately 112 kilometres an hour. It is also fairly easy for law enforcement to check whether or not Laura was booked onto a flight, which again hasn't been confirmed one way or another. Additionally, it could be ascertained that if she was booked on a flight, whether or not she had checked in, and specifically whether she had done so either in person or online in advance. Again, I have to assume that these lines of inquiry were followed up on, but the results have not been made public. No mention has been made publicly regarding any eyewitness accounts, nor any automatic number plate recognition or ANPR, or any CCTV footage which has been obtained of Laura, her family, or the vehicle in question. Equally, there is no public record of any mobile phone analysis which may have been conducted. We don't know if Laura had a mobile phone or if it disappeared along with her. We have no information relating to any potential luggage which Laura may have been in possession of at the time. If it was true that Laura was due to go on a planned trip to Egypt, then she should have had luggage, whether checked or carry-on. If no such plans had been made, she'd be unlikely to have any luggage with her. We don't know of any items which were missing from her home address, or any details of the luggage carried or checked by the family. This is important for a few reasons. Firstly, if Laura didn't pack luggage, then it would appear that she had no plans to leave her home for any length of time. If she did pack, the contents could give us an indication as to her plans. Did she pack holiday clothing, swimwear? Did she pack for a week or longer? For what climate did she pack? Were her belongings packed with those of her family or kept entirely separate, which may suggest that she had an intention to split off from them? Additionally, what about her husband's luggage? It was suggested that he was due to come to the UK to spend a week in London with his children. Considering he was believed to have already been back in Egypt by the time Laura was reported missing the following day, it is highly unlikely that his property was searched, though if he had packed for a week, this may support this theory, whereas packing simply for a day could suggest that he had every intention of removing the children back to Egypt the following day. Similarly, what of the girls' luggage? Were any of their belongings left at the home in Thanet? Were they packed for a week? Had anything been packed for them at all? Did something happen, prompting an impromptu flight out of the country? We also don't know anything about what else Laura might have been carrying with her when she disappeared. Did she have any cash or access to it? When was the last time a financial transaction was made on her accounts? Where is Laura's ID card, if she had one, or passport? If she was flying to Egypt, we would assume that she had a Latvian passport with an Egyptian spousal visa within it, which she would have used to travel to Egypt. There is no mention of this, or whether it, like a possible mobile phone or bank card, etc., disappeared along with her. Having spoken with people who knew Laura, including family, I found out the following information. Bear in mind that I have no way of verifying this information, but it certainly seems to answer some of our questions. Laura's boyfriend, Levani, or Alexei, was questioned by police on April 24th. Levani and Laura had lived together for approximately 1 year at the time, and it transpired that Levani's car tyres were slashed the night Laura was believed to have left for Heathrow in the company of her husband. Whether that meant that Levani was present that evening is open to speculation. There have been suggestions that the relationship between Laura and her husband was abusive, encompassing domestic violence, though considering that for the most part the relationship was outside of the UK, information relating to this is unable to be confirmed. Whilst it has not been confirmed whether the husband and children continued their onward journey to Egypt that same day, those who knew Laura confirmed this to be the case. Additionally, whilst again it has not been confirmed who reported Laura as missing, those close to Laura explained that it was her parents who filed the report based off the following version of events. The family were under the impression that Laura was seeking a divorce from her husband, and that her husband was due to visit the UK to spend a week in London with their children, beginning the day that Laura disappeared, that being Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015. When Laura's husband flew into the UK has not been released, but is suspected to have been the day or days before her disappearance. Laura's father spoke to Laura on either Tuesday the 21st of April or Wednesday the 22nd of April. No approximate time or reason for this call has been offered, though it has been suggested that Laura told him that everything was fine, prompting speculation that the call was made specifically to check the safety and well-being of Laura, in the light of her husband's attendance. Again, it has not been confirmed where Laura was or claimed to be at the time of this conversation. If this call was made on the 22nd, then it may suggest that Laura had travelled, whether willingly or otherwise, with her family away from her home, though either way her family were not aware of any reason for this other than speculation that a divorce was looming. The following day, on Thursday the 23rd of April, when Laura's father couldn't get hold of her and she was not at home when she was supposed to have been, her parents contacted the police. By this time, 33 hours had passed between the last alleged sighting of her, and Laura had disappeared, and her husband and children were in Egypt. There has been little movement in Laura's case since her disappearance. Just 1 month after Laura disappeared, her boyfriend, Levani, began a relationship with a neighbour of Laura's. Within months, they were pregnant. On August 14th, 2016, Lavani and Laura's neighbour had a daughter together. Less than a year later, in May or June of 2017, Lavani left the UK and returned to his native Georgia. It is unclear whether he was present the night Laura disappeared, and what, if anything, he told police when he was questioned in the aftermath. From February 19th, 2018, Laura's case has appeared on Kent Police's list of unsolved murders, though she is still listed as a missing person. On October 18th, 2019, Laura's husband and children moved to Alexandria in Egypt. On May 7th, 2020, I submitted a Freedom of Information request to Kent Police asking for information regarding the disappearance of Laura, which was rejected on the grounds that it was still an ongoing investigation. In December of 2022, I submitted a further Freedom of Information request to Kent Police, again asking for information regarding the disappearance of Laura. Over 2.5 years have passed since the last time I submitted this request, so while I am still expecting the same response, it may be that things have changed in that time. As of 2022, Laura's husband has not publicly released any appeals in her case. The theories in this case are plentiful, with some being more plausible than others. Ordinarily, as with any missing adult, we would consider the possibility that Laura may have taken her own life. In this case, however, it is an unlikely theory, with no supporting evidence whatsoever. Although her relationship with her husband had broken down, Laura was in a new relationship with a man she was believed to have been deeply in love with. Although he had his own share of problems, which we will discuss in more detail later, Laura seemed for the most part happy. She had her father in the UK helping to look after the children so she could work and socialise. She had friends, and it didn't appear that Laura would have ever considered suicide. We would usually also consider the possibility of an accident having occurred. However, as with the prior theory, there is little evidence to support this either, unless it was an accident caused by another that we might address later on. Could Laura have experienced a mental break, took off in the early hours and encountered an accident? There's no known history of mental health concerns in her family, and no known triggers for one, with the exception that she may have been seeking a divorce. Given the fact that she was in a new relationship, however, her job seemed to be going well, she had a support network and her children with her, this is unlikely. That leaves the two main theories in this case, with each having as much supporting information as the other. First, let's discuss the possibility that Laura left of her own accord. While, to some degree, some of the points touched upon in the suicide theory might stand here, we have a lot more information that adds weight to this possibility. Additionally, there have been those who have claimed to have seen Laura since she disappeared, or that she has been active on social media. For example, one such person commented, "Whatever she was doing on the 22nd of April, she was still alive on the 23rd of April at 23:04 because she was on her profile on Latvian site called draugium.lv, but she hasn't been online since." Draugium is the largest social network and most visited website in Latvia, with approximately 2.6 million registered users. I have since been unable to locate this person to question them regarding the statement though, and its veracity cannot be confirmed. Another individual, who again cannot since be traced, suggested that, while they cannot remember what day it was, they believe they saw her in a sunbed shop waiting for a sunbed, and that she was wearing a red top and black leggings. Sadly, neither of these leads have panned out to date. Considering there were suggestions of domestic violence and abuse within the relationship, is it possible that Laura was fleeing willingly? There are underground agencies which exist to help people in this very situation to get away from their life and start afresh elsewhere, including the Domestic Violence Underground Railroad, where the need for security, privacy and safety of the client requires there be no trackable affiliation, meaning there is no overseeing board of directors and no audited financial statements. Although, if Laura was wishing to take off or begin a new life, why would she not take her children, or at least have some form of contact with them or her family to let them know that she is safe? Agencies such as the one we've just discussed will often assist with getting the victim back to family who can support them wherever possible. It's not unheard of for people to drop off the radar and cut all ties with their former loved ones, but this seemed to be really out of character for Laura, who had a very supportive family and could have easily returned to Latvia. That being said, perhaps she did in fact return to Latvia with help from a former friend or connection. Though if this is the case, the question remains as to how she would have done so, since it has been declared that Laura didn't board a flight. More on this later. Assuming the publicly released information is indeed correct, that being that Laura was in fact at the airport, then this would be the perfect place from which to vanish intentionally. Heathrow Airport is significantly well connected, as we mentioned earlier on, with public transport of all varieties leaving the area 24/7. The Heathrow Express is a non-stop train service directly between the airport and London Paddington Station in the heart of the capital city. Trains leave every 15 minutes and the inter-terminal transport connects all terminals with the stations from which to board the train. The journey takes between 15 and 20 minutes, and Paddington is connected to not just the underground tube network, but the overground trains also, amassing a multitude of potential locations all over the country that Laura could have travelled to in the 33 hours between when she was allegedly last seen and when she was reported missing. There are also many bus and coach services which operate from the airport, with a hotel hopper bus connecting the airport to all of the major hotels in the vicinity. There is also no shortage of taxis waiting to pick up fares, and the ability to rent or hire a vehicle from the airport itself. A woman using public transport would certainly not stand out and is unlikely to stick in people's minds for any reason. However, if Laura had left the area on foot or on public transport, it is highly unlikely that she would not have been seen on CCTV doing so. The UK is one of the most watched countries in the world, with an estimated 4 million to 6 million CCTV cameras, the third highest total on the planet behind the US and China, and Heathrow itself is monitored by over 6,500 CCTV cameras, as we've said. Equally, we know that the police are looking for people who saw Laura en route to the airport, not away from it, suggesting that she didn't leave the airport of her own accord. There is also a suggestion that Laura is living in Georgia with Levani, her boyfriend at the time. Now, this is a controversial suggestion, riddled with unverifiable hearsay, and I need to remind people not to pass judgment on Laura's character, since we know nothing of her personal circumstances, other than the fact that she is still a missing person deserving of love, life, and happiness. And let's not forget that she also has 2 children who need and miss her, and who deserve the same. It has been alleged by somebody close to both Laura and Levani that Laura may have been pregnant by Levani during the course of their relationship, but that Levani was unhappy with that fact and supposedly pressured Laura into getting a termination. It is further suggested that Laura was so deeply in love with Levani, who didn't want children, that she had considered allowing her children to move back to Egypt with their father. Again, I need to remind people not to pass judgment and that this is unconfirmed information. If true, however, it would certainly suggest that it is plausible that Laura could have used the opportunity of her children spending time with their father to leave in furtherance of her relationship with Levani, who, remember, may have been present the night when Laura supposedly disappeared and her husband and children went to Egypt. That being said, it is known that just 1 month after Laura disappeared, Levani was in a new relationship with a neighbour with whom he had a child the following year. It is also known that Levani also had a son and a daughter already living with his wife and mother back in Georgia. However, could it be that Laura suspected that there was some kind of attraction between Levani and the neighbour prior to her going missing? Could she have felt so distressed that she intentionally left? Though, to challenge the theory that Laura left of her own volition, we should consider first and foremost why the police have concluded that Laura is deceased. The final theory is that of foul play. Laura is sadly now presumed dead by Kent police and features on their list of unsolved murders, in addition to retaining her status as a missing person. Within this theory, there are a further 3 subsections that we need to consider. The first being that Laura fell victim, somehow, to a crime of opportunity. Some of the same information discussed under the suicide and accident theories come into consideration here, namely that it mostly hinges on the fact that Laura, for some reason, either left of her own accord or was otherwise placed in a situation where foul play at the hands of a stranger befell her. This is not very plausible. We know that Laura was allegedly at home on the evening of Wednesday the 22nd of April 2015, as her children and even possibly her boyfriend, Levani, were there. Somehow, police were given the information that Laura left the premises at approximately 3:20 in the morning in the company of her family en route to the airport. It did take over 4 hours longer than it should have done for the vehicle they were allegedly travelling in to arrive in the Heathrow area, which does suggest the possibility of something untoward happening en route. However, given the company she was in and the subsequent report, or lack of one, by her husband, it's not really feasible that someone else was responsible for foul play against Laura during that time. Unless there may have been an argument during the journey, with Laura being evicted from the vehicle or opting to get out on her own accord, leading to a random encounter that ended in tragedy. There is, however, no evidence or information to suggest that this is the case. Moving on are the final theories in the case, both under the umbrella of foul play. It is believed that there is what is commonly but mistakenly known as a love triangle situation, that being between Laura, her husband, and her boyfriend. And you know what they say? 3's a crowd. Let's look at the possibility that Laura's husband, Laura El Hagrasi, was responsible for foul play of some sort against her. As with any missing persons case, the significant other and those significantly closer to the victim must be looked into. This theory itself has a few distinct possibilities. One of the more controversial theories is that Laura may have been killed through a so-called honour killing. Contrary to popular belief, such acts are not confined to an individual group, culture, race or religion, but are sadly practiced widely by a variety of communities. The most widely accepted definition of an honour killing is the murder of a person to prevent what is seen as an indignity or dishonour to one's family, or to atone for some shame that is seen to have been brought upon them. Most commonly, these crimes are perpetrated against women by male relatives, an example of which is the tragic case of the 2003 murder of Shafilia Ahmed in Cheshire, England. Typical reasons for honour killings can include engaging in extramarital sexual activity or seeking a divorce or separation, both of which information suggests Laura was doing. Needless to say, though, that honour killing is never justified and is murder, plain and simple. Another possibility is that Laura was killed before she left her home address. We do not know if her boyfriend Levani was present that night, though we know his vehicle was there as his tyres were allegedly slashed. Friends suggest that Laura would have never gotten into a vehicle with her husband, instead opting to travel separately from him, though Laura is said to have left the home address in company with her husband at 3:20 in the morning. Although their children were reported to have been with them at this time, it is possible that they were sleeping and didn't witness anything. If Laura was somehow incapacitated or taken unaware, then it's possible that the children may not have heard anything either. A friend remembers that investigators were due to travel to Egypt to speak with Laura's daughters, though could provide no update on this. One key belief is that the journey to the airport took so long because Laura's body was disposed of en route. That would seem to suggest that, if true, Laura may be found somewhere in the vicinity of Kent or along the route between Cliftonville and Heathrow. Of note is the fact that there are forests and bodies of water around the airport, as well as Thanet being surrounded by bodies of water. Another possibility is that Laura was somehow smuggled out of the UK, either into Egypt or elsewhere. It has been noted that Laura did not board a plane, but we must analyse how this information would be known. Bearing in mind that it is highly unlikely that anybody on a plane outside of her family knew or could identify Laura, the typical method of ascertaining whether somebody has left the country is via inquiries with border agencies. In the UK, this being the UK Border Force. Police can also submit requests for information directly from the airlines, airports, and other travel providers despite data protection due to the need to detect and prevent crime. It is highly suggested then that rather than being certain that Laura herself did not board a plane, it is more likely that Laura's documentation was not used, meaning, in effect, that Laura could well have boarded a plane under an alternative passport. Personal anecdotal evidence suggests this is possible, despite in this day and age post 9/11 security. A Reddit user by the nickname Ian Brooks offers his own experience as evidence. I would never have thought it possible, but when flying to Amsterdam 2 years ago with my mum, we switched passports. I had hers, she had mine. We got to Amsterdam and through 2 checks, and no one realised till we got through security. We must also consider that it is generally good practice to question a sole parent removing children from a country without the presence of the other parent. Whilst I don't doubt that this is not always followed, I do know that it often is, and it is possible that Ahmed may have been stopped by security or border force without a female being present representing the girl's mother. Could this suggest that there was, in fact, a woman there, potentially even Laura? Another Reddit user offers their personal experience in regard to this, saying, "When I was a kid travelling with my single mum, usually in, to, or from the UK, sometimes customs, either in Canada or the UK, would ask me about my dad. But I don't think they were consistent about asking." A different scenario which has been suggested is that either Laura was impersonated by someone else at the airport as part of a pre-arrangement, meaning that while Laura was allegedly sighted at the airport, it was not in fact her. This person could have changed in a restroom and left without catching the attention of the CCTV. Carrying a bag is certainly not out of place in an airport. A slightly different version of this scenario suggests that Laura herself was seen at the airport, but that she changed, either voluntarily or under duress, into attire which prevented her from being identified. Given that Laura's husband was of the Islamic faith, it is possible also that Laura could have been wearing traditional Islamic dress, being a burqa or a hijab in the areas in which this is allowed, preventing identification by CCTV. Notably, facial recognition was not introduced into Heathrow Airport until 2018 or 2019, years after Laura disappeared. Whilst this may sound like a somewhat extraordinary theory, it is not unprecedented, with potentially the most notable incident of this occurring being in the aftermath of the 2017 murder of Kim Jong-nam. Reuters reported that, according to a police witness, 4 men suspected of killing the North Korean leader's half-brother at a Malaysian airport changed their clothes and appearance to escape detection before going on the run. Reddit user Wexler Mendelssohn explains their own personal experience. "I've changed entire outfits in airport bathrooms before, if it's a long flight or major weather difference from departure to destination, so this even feels like that sort of thing that someone could do in a restroom and no one would think anything of. Not to mention airport restrooms aren't a place many dawdle, so if you timed it correctly, no one who saw you come in would be looking to see you go out." To those considering that these are incredibly far-fetched suggestions, it has been alleged that Laura's husband was in prison in the 2000s in Italy for human trafficking. Since Italian criminal records are not made public without good reason, I'm unable to verify this information, but if true, it would certainly add weight to this theory. It is possible a fraudulent passport was obtained outside of the UK, which was used to transport Laura from the country. Again, I would like to think the CCTV was carefully analysed at the boarding gate, and if Laura's husband and children were in the company of anybody else, this would have been thoroughly investigated. Though, we know that the family were allegedly long outside of the UK by the time that Laura was reported missing. On this point, it is worth noting that, according to Wikipedia, for many decades, Heathrow Airport had an undesirable reputation for theft from baggage by staff, which led to the airport being named Thief Row, with periodic arrests of baggage handlers. Is it possible that Laura's husband was able to bribe a staff member to smuggle Laura aboard a plane? Maybe not the most likely of options, but an option nonetheless. It is also of importance to consider why Laura's husband was not the one to report her as missing, why he hasn't released any public appeals for her return, and why he left the country in the first place if his wife had supposedly vanished from the airport with no trace. There is no shortage of assistance at the airport, security personnel everywhere, and a tannoy system that could have been employed to search for Laura at the airport. Does this suggest that he in fact does know where she is, or even that she may not be returning? Again, purely hearsay, but in addition to the allegations of human trafficking, Laura's husband allegedly claimed to know where her boyfriend Lavani's wife lived, and that he would kill everyone there. Moving on, there is the possibility that Lavani, or Alexei, was responsible for foul play against Laura. Lavani was married with a wife and 2 children in Georgia prior to his relationship with Laura. Though she was described to have loved him deeply, it has been suggested that when she got pregnant, he was unhappy and pressured her into having a termination. Like with much of what we've discussed in the theories section, this is unsubstantiated. However, it does add a layer of possibility to this theory. It was believed that Lavani came to the UK for work, since it was claimed that there was very little in the way of work for him in his native Georgia. If this is the case, then he could well have been having these affairs behind the back of his wife, who was none the wiser, in contrast to Laura, who was allegedly actively seeking a divorce and was separated from her husband. A child could have posed significant challenges for Lavani in his marriage, if it was always his intention to return to his wife and family, like he subsequently did. That being said, it is known that the year after Laura disappeared, a daughter was born to him by Laura's neighbour, so whether this is plausible is questionable. We also need to consider, as we've mentioned, whether Lavani was present the day Laura disappeared and her husband allegedly turned up at the address. Laura and Lavani had been living together for approximately 1 year by this time. While it is believed that Laura's husband knew about her boyfriend, it is not believed that he would be able to identify his vehicle, which apparently had its tyres slashed that same night. More speculation is that Lavani is described as a heroin user at the time, and at least one person who knew both him and Laura suggested the possibility that he was responsible for her disappearance. Consider the following scenario. Laura's children were due to spend a week with their father in London, as believed by Laura's father. The children's father flies to London and is not met by Laura and his children. He grows concerned or frustrated and hires a car to drive to Laura's address and see what's happening. When he arrives, he finds the house unlocked and his daughters home alone. He gets annoyed and removes them from the property, drives to the airport and books them all on a flight back to Egypt to teach Laura a lesson for leaving his children unattended. We know that Laura liked to party, although her father would generally babysit when she did. After he returned to Egypt, he found out about Laura's disappearance and kept the children to raise. Meanwhile, Lavani slashed his own tyres in an attempt to make it look like Laura's husband had done it, and there's no evidence to the contrary. Possible? Certainly. Plausible? No less than some of the other theories. If either Laura's husband or boyfriend were responsible for her disappearance, without evidence coming to light, Laura being located, or cooperation from them, it will be quite the challenge to bring them to justice, given that as of yet there is no mutual legal assistance or bilateral extradition treaties between the UK and either Egypt or Georgia. Sadly, we may never know what happened to Laura El Hagrasi on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2015, in Kent. I'm going to leave you now with Laura's description and some final words from family, friends, and investigators. At the time of her disappearance, Laura was described as a 33-year-old Caucasian female with a medium build. She was 5 feet 4 inches, or approximately 162 centimetres tall. She had straight, shoulder-length brown hair and green eyes. It is unknown what she was last seen wearing. Laura is a Latvian national who may speak with an Eastern European accent. Laura may use her birth and maiden name, Laura Priedi, her nickname, Luari, her Egyptian surname, Ahmed El Hagrasi, or any combination thereof. If seen today, Laura would be 40 years old. After Laura disappeared, her father broke down and started self-medicating to cope with the gaping hole left in Laura's wake. Neighbours would find him sleeping in the front door completely drunken in tears, explaining that he felt that his granddaughters had been kidnapped. Laura will be remembered by family and friends as a smiling person with the biggest heart, who was extraordinarily kind to her nephew and niece, who miss her greatly. If Laura has indeed left of her own accord, it's nobody's place to pass judgment. Instead, I would just ask Laura to come forward so that her case can be closed and the resources dedicated to it can be redistributed amongst other cases which need them. In the words of her missing persons poster, Laura, we are here for you whenever you are ready. We can listen, talk you through what help you need, pass the message and help you to be safe. Contact details are provided below. Kent Police's Detective Inspector Richard Vickery said, her family are very worried about Laura, as her disappearance is completely out of character. We are keeping an open mind as to where she may have gone, but we are becoming increasingly concerned for her welfare. Sadly, Laura is now presumed dead by Kent Police and features on their list of unsolved murders, although she is still listed as a missing person. Subsequent police reports advise that Laura's disappearance is now being treated as murder, but her body has not been found, and we are still keen to hear from anyone with information, explaining that Laura is the only person we are appealing for information for. Specifically, police are appealing to anybody who may have seen or heard from Laura, or who may have seen the vehicle, a silver-coloured Peugeot 208 hire or rental car with the registration AK13VHT or Alpha Kilo 13 Victor Hotel Tango, travelling to Heathrow on Wednesday the 22nd of April 2015, to contact them directly, or Crimestoppers. Contact details will be provided in the description box below. Further police spokespersons reiterated in Laura's case, officers initially investigated her disappearance as a missing person inquiry, but later treated it as a murder investigation, which remains unsolved, adding that the cold case team carries out regular case reviews into unsolved murders and other serious offences, and while this particular investigation is not currently being re-examined, it is important to remember that no case is ever truly closed. It is devastating to see that this case has quite obviously stalled, and I'd really like to believe that police have more information than has been publicly released and are actively working towards finding Laura. Though, what is for certain, and I hope that this brings some solace to Laura's loved ones, is that the people of the UK haven't forgotten about Laura. Despite the geographical challenges, Laura's appeals are still shared up and down the country, with Staining Town Community Football Club sharing an appeal for Laura on September 25th, 2022, prompting comments like those from Susan Howie that said, "Blessings for a safe return." The Healing World Outreach have also shared appeals for Laura, noting that a candle is a light to bring this young woman home safely. It is important to remember, as investigators in the case emphasise, what may be considered a small detail to an individual may be that missing piece. If you have any information relating to the disappearance of Laura El Hagrasi, please use the contact information in the description box below to get it to those who can act on it. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to hear about Laura's case. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time. Bye!